Like the pine trees lining the winding road. I've got a name, I've got a name.
Sunday, Monday, happy days. Tuesday, Wednesday, happy days.
Soon we'll be making another run. And I'm ready to take a chance again. Ready to put my love on the line with you.
I don't feel the need to have an identifiable sound in my music. People have said to me they recognize my music. If so, then so be it. But I don't start to do that. I don't start to say, this is my sound. I always use trombones this way. I always develop motifs this way. Or I always try to do this in the counterpoint. I don't always try to do anything. I just do it as it comes. You know, learning to write anything is just a process. I had a friend who was in the record field, and he said, if you would learn to arrange some of the music, you might be able to get some work, and I needed work. So I started listening to the radio and records that just were really not my kind of music at that time. All of that was not necessarily influencing my other work, but in each of the genres that I worked, I mean, for example, I was told years ago that why don't you devote yourself more to one kind of music rather than do all these various things? Well, first of all, I really wanted to compose music, and arranging was just a step towards composing. I was trained as a composer. I knew that my heart was in it, and I knew that I had a lot of music to write. But it was also a question of earning a living. So, for example, if I had a choice between an arrangement to do or a short film, a short documentary film, I'd always choose the film. I'd always choose the short documentary that gave me a chance to express new music. And I was able to keep all those separate. And I think for a while, the fact that I was still playing in Latin bands really to earn a daily living, writing for those bands, my early songs were in Spanish.
Será el amor que ha dejado en mí dulce eterno amor que aprendí de ti que la vida no se acabe y el amor no tiene fin. Se marchó sacando un grito de mi alma, de mi ser, que pido una caricia una vez más.
You know, I think you can do anything for anything. I do. I think you can use any sound, any texture. The difference is, when you write for film, when you write for a character, when you write a dramatic situation, you have to understand the needs of that dramatic situation. And we know there's a difference between music that's just made to be performed independent of any visual substance. If that works along with it, that's fine. But very oftentimes, I mean, for example, some of the greatest music ever written was the Bartok string quartets. If you place the Bartok string quartets against the scene in the picture, it's too much, I would say, just to pick something based on your question. It's such fantastic music from the inside. It's so involved that it might, if you would place it up against a dramatic scene, for example, I think you'd be drawn so much to the texture of the music that you might not see the scene that needs to be brought out. But if you're writing to that scene and you wanted to use this language of Bartok, then if you have the ability to do that, and some composers do, and some composers don't, if you have the ability to place yourself in the scene so that you understand what the nature is of the scene, and how the characters have to interact, and what is the message I'm looking for. And am I underscoring what they're saying? Am I underscoring some sort of subtext that they're thinking about, that what's home, or what maybe or could have been? If you understand all that, then I think the language you use can be the same language, but it has to be, it has to move with the film, and I guess there's a kind of a mystery to that.
Thank you.
In 1959, I came to Fontainebleau, France, to study with Nadia Boulanger. So I was on the stage conducting. At one point, Mademoiselle Boulanger was standing right next to me. And she stopped me and she said, I don't remember the comment about the moment, but she said something, she thinks it might be better if I do something else. Faster, slower, louder, I don't recall. And I know it was something that it didn't sound right to me. In my ear, it had to be as I was doing it, not as she was suggesting it. And I said, but Mademoiselle, and she said, well, try it, you know, and I knew it wasn't my heart to do it as she did, yet I was standing next to Mademoiselle Nadia Boulanger. And my first experience like this, and I turned to the orchestra and I said, all right, would you play it halfway between the way I said and the way Mademoiselle Boulanger suggests? And I raised my hand to conduct, and she pulled my jacket like this. And she said, but my dear, she says, compromises makes for very nice friendship, but for very bad music. She said, play it the way you want or play it the way I want, but don't compromise. And I got a very good lesson in music right there, frankly. I mean, I can't tell you how many different periods of music I've had to write in big band era, the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, the 1890s, you know, the waltzes and Hawaiian music and all kinds of ethnic music, African music. That's part of the landscape of that film. So really, as a film composer now, you really have to be very chameleon-like. You really have to know the genres. So I just think it's all part of the world of music that we have today. And as you said before, the lines are now much more crossed between one genre and another. I would say that, you know, the avant-garde composers of the 60s, for example, probably wouldn't have had anything to do with the pop music of the day. You know, the Stockhausens and Berlioz and Nonos, Boulez. But I can tell you that my class, my composition class that I taught for a number of years at UCLA, a graduate class, the kids would come in and say, you have to hear this new hip-hop record. It's so great. It's just, it reminds me of some classical. So they see more of a crossover, you know. I think it was, and I think it's for the better. I do. I think it's for the better that music coexists together. I mean, what we hear on the radio, what we hear is street noises. Unfortunately, we're hearing a little hammering on the street because of building down there. I think that all kind of goes into our world. It's a world of contemporary sound where there's a conflux of things going on at the same time. Why not draw from everything?